From ChatGPT to DALL-E, it might seem like the pace of progress in artificial intelligence is unstoppable. But the artificial neural networks that underpin these programs are coming up against some major limitations. For one, they have a hard time reasoning. Human brains are able to reason by analogy. When we see something new, we don't have to grow new neurons. We can generalize new concepts from existing knowledge. But artificial neural networks struggle to reason by analogy in this way. When confronting new information, they often require more artificial nodes to scale up their statistical abilities, which enables them to learn new concepts. This approach is called statistical AI. Statistical AI is at the heart of deep neural networks, but there is another competing approach known as symbolic AI, which uses logic-based programming and makes use of symbols to represent concepts and rules.
So by their very nature, they are incompatible. And the big challenge is that how we can combine them together to get the best of both worlds.
An emerging approach called hyperdimensional computing aims to do just that. It taps into the power of statistical AI while also trying to emulate symbolic computing. It does this by using vectors, ordered lists of numbers that can also represent arrows in space. Depending on where they're pointing, these vectors can represent information in a highly complex multidimensional way. They can embody nuances in traits or concepts just by small changes to their orientation. These vectors can combine to represent new concepts, then be pulled apart again to discern how they were formed. And crucially, these hyperdimensional vectors can encode information without having to add more nodes to the network.
The moment that we bring hyperdimensional computing or vector symbolic architectures and marry it with the statistical methods such as deep neural network, we can have a certain advantages.
In March 2023, computer scientists at IBM Research in Zurich made a dramatic breakthrough by combining statistical and symbolic methods to solve the Raven's progressive matrix, a puzzle that asks an AI to predict an image to fill the final square of a 3x3 grid.
This is a classical problem. The first aspect is the perception part, where we look at different visual objects, and then we have to recognize certain aspects of the objects. For example, what is the shape of the object, what is the color, what is the size, all this kind of the property. And the second aspect is to perform some abstract reasoning on top of these kind of attributes of the objects to be able to solve a puzzle. So for the first time, we combine hyperdimensional computing or vector symbolic architectures machinery with deep neural networks to be able to solve abstract reasoning problems at a scale. Essentially, we can build inside the neural network a machinery that is able to emulate any symbolic computing task that is hard for the neural network itself to do.
The researchers also broke new ground by solving the problem in record speed.
We were able to significantly accelerate the inference times of some of abstract reasoning tasks, by 250 times. Having a method that is able to search in this kind of the space rapidly, it's quite crucial to be able to make them quite practical for larger scale and real world problems.
Although more work is needed, researchers like Rahimi hope that hyperdimensional computing could be faster, more transparent, and more energy efficient than current AI platforms.
We can substantially reduce the energy consumptions. We are talking about, 10 times to 100 times lower energy consumptions, which can directly transfer to lowering the carbon footprints once we are performing the inference of these kind of the models. Solving Raven progressive matrices was just a prototype. It was so far amazing, but the fun is just beginning. That's the beauty.
In the 1990s, mathematician Peter Shor developed an algorithm that threatened to break the internet. He was trying to understand the power of quantum computers and realized that they would be able to rapidly break large numbers into their prime factors. That would undermine one of the central methods of modern cryptography that has safeguarded online privacy for decades.
So when I discovered the algorithm, I just called it the factoring algorithm, or the quantum factoring algorithm, and I published it. And soon people started calling it Shor's algorithm.
At the heart of Shor's algorithm is the act of repeatedly multiplying one number with itself until the output of a certain function starts repeating. The required number of multiplications, called the function's period, can be used to find the prime factors of any large number. For the last 30 years, this has been the fastest known algorithm for factoring integers. Then, in August 2023, mathematician Oded Regev published a groundbreaking new paper.
Shor's algorithm is great in the sense that it allows quantum computers to factorize integers and do it quickly. I was asking myself if it can be made even faster.
Regev suspected that he could speed up Shor's algorithm by transforming the periodic function from one dimension to multiple dimensions. That meant including more numbers, multiplying each with itself many times over to find the period of repetition in the outputs. In doing so, Regev established an improved method to factor integers faster and more efficiently.
Shor's algorithm is about finding how long you have to walk on a line to get back to where you started. In the new algorithm, we no longer walk on a line. We walk on a plane or even three-dimensional space or more. The idea is that you can walk both, right, left, but also top down on the plane. So it could be, for instance, that if you walk 4 steps to the right and 5 steps up, you'll be back to where you started from.
Odin's improvement to my algorithm came out of the blue. There wasn't any, work leading up to it. He just had a really good idea, and he sat down and figured it out, and published a paper.
Like Shor's algorithm, Regev's new algorithm remains theoretical in nature, speaking to a potential future when quantum computing becomes more practical.
I would be happy if it turns out that this new algorithm is more practical. It has some of the components that could make it more practical, but it's not clear yet if it's really there.
My algorithm is 30 years old now? And Oded found an improvement on it that nobody had thought of before. I wouldn't be surprised if people came up with more innovative quantum algorithms. And it's quite possible that someone will improve factoring algorithm even further.
We already knew how to factorize integers using Shor's algorithm. So this new algorithm is kind of just a speed up. What I would really like to know is if quantum computers can do things that we just didn't know how to do.
Which movie do these emojis represent? When researchers asked 3 different large language models, they got very different answers. The simplest AI struggled to come up with a coherent answer. A somewhat more complex model spit out something reasonable, but still wrong. But the most complex system nailed it in just one try. This impressive result can be explained by a range of exciting new abilities AI researchers are calling emergent behaviors.
Something that is not present in a small language model that becomes present in a larger model, it can be said to have emerged. We don't think that it'll be there, and then we scale it up, and all of a sudden this phenomenon is already there. And so it's not necessarily a predictable phenomenon.
Emergence happens when a system behaves in ways its individual units don't on their own. This phenomenon can be seen across nature, such as when lifeless atoms give rise to living cells, water molecules create waves, and starlings swarm and swoop as one. Researchers are seeing that if enough digital nodes combine in large language models, surprising new behaviors can emerge. These behaviors are a distinct departure from older neural networks, which process language word by painstaking word. In 2017, a key piece of code known as a transformer was introduced to LLMs, enabling neural networks to analyze words in parallel. Now, LLMs can process strings of text in an instant.
The models we were training before seemed to struggle with a lot of kind of more abstract tasks, more generalization. And what we've seen since transformers is that if we train much larger models, they're better at those tasks.
The magic of transformers is that they're extremely good at solving sequence prediction problems. So given a bunch of items in a sequence, predict the next thing. And this is particularly good for building generative models of, for example, language and also images.
This year, researchers have reported a range of emergent behaviors that enable LLMs to solve problems they've never seen before. This is known as zero-shot or few-shot learning, and it's long been a goal in artificial intelligence. But as exciting as the results are, researchers still have questions about what exactly is underpinning these emergent abilities.
People are trying to figure out, at what point is there a tipping point?
One theory suggests that emergence happens when large language models break down complex tasks into smaller steps. This process is called chain of thought reasoning. But the true source of the tipping point into emergence remains a mystery.
The models get better as they get bigger, and people are releasing bigger models at a pretty rapid clip. Meanwhile, the science of understanding what's happening under the hood progresses more slowly than that.
So one of the challenges with emergence is that it's unpredictable. Because on the one hand, bigger models typically mean better models. But on the other hand, bigger models also can demonstrate novel behaviors that the developers didn't anticipate a priori. These can be beneficial behaviors, but they can also be harmful behaviors. So the ways in which they will be used or are used are still unfolding, and therefore it's equally important to measure the possible types of harms that might be espoused in these models and how they emerge or do not emerge with scale.
And so things feel quite unpredictable right now. But I don't think they will always be unpredictable.